Hi, I'm here to talk about my subject, Martin Luther King Jr., in which I wrote my paper on. He was born January 15th, 1929, and he was assassinated April 4th, 1968. My purpose is to inform the audience about the impact of Martin Luther King Jr. that he had not only on the civil rights movement, but the world today as well. He was the leader of the civil rights movement from December 1955 until April 1968. And without King's influence and active participation, there wouldn't have been much progress made towards the equal rights for African Americans. During the less than 13 years of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s leadership of the modern American civil rights movement, from December 1955 until April 4th, 1968, the African Americans received more genuine progress towards racial equality in America than the past 350 years. And I got that from the King Center in 2014. Today I'd like to discuss what Martin Luther King Jr. did not only as a person, but as an advocate for change. He was a strong leader for the civil rights movement and not only helped speak for the movement, but be a part of the movement as well. He held marches, protests, and performed acts of nonviolence to help this cause, and that was also from the King Center. He was a pastor at a church when he first started out, which his father and grandfather also was a part of. And in 1955, he was recruited for the spokesman by the Montgomery bus boycott. And after the boycott, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference began after the boycott ended, and that was from the U.S. History of 2016. And in 1957, King was elected by the Southern Christian Leadership Conference to be the president of it. And he took on the role of being a leader at an early age, and soon thereafter would come forth to be one of the largest leaders of his time. He is best known for his powerful words, his nonviolent acts, and his I Have a Dream speech. And King was the greatest nonviolent leader in history and began the nonviolent movement in the late 1950s to the 60s, and in 1963 he was the driving force behind the March on Washington. And in his I Have a Dream speech, he talked about how African Americans still do not have equal rights, and even though 100 years prior it was signed to the Declaration of Independence and that everyone should be equal. He used repetition about his dream and visions for everyone to be able to walk hand in hand and see the day that it would happen, and his words helped you envision that in your mind. And he wanted everyone to participate in the movement, but used no violence. And the end of the King, beginning of the dream is the title of this slide. And that's because he was shot and killed by James Earl Ray on April 4th, 1968. And his death had a huge reaction from everyone. Violence and rage spread like wildfire after the death and loss of the king, and riots began to start. He was on the walkway of his hotel when he was shot and killed, and that was right before one of the marches they were going to do. And after he died, he received the Nobel Peace Prize, and he was one of the youngest men to ever receive that at the age of 35. And in 1977, he was also awarded the Medal of Freedom, and this is the highest award a civilian can earn in the United States. And I got this information from U.S. History 2016. And this slide is just his I Have a Dream and just some pictures of him. And then this last slide, it says, "The time is always right to do what is right, Martin Luther King Jr." And I added this because his whole persona was to do what was right and to do it nonviolently, to get his point across and to have everyone be equal in the end. Thanks for your time.